There are new questions about the National Security Agency's massive spy center under construction in the desert of Utah. Once finished, it'll be 5 times the size of the U.S. Capitol building. The N.S.A. is not allowed to spy on Americans, but now a whistleblower has come forward saying that the agency is doing it anyway. Want to bring in Mike Baker, a former CIA covert operations officer, now president of the global intelligence and security firm known as Diligence LLC. Nice to see you, Baker.
Thanks very much.
Welcome back here. What do you make of this now?
Well, the fact that they're building a new data center isn't news in the sense that they've got several other facilities. The size of this is what is creating the stir, I think, in part. Plus, there was an article in Wired magazine, again, as you referred to, the whistleblower, a former NSA longtime employee who is now talking I would say out of turn about what he views as the inappropriate nature of NSA's work. And it sounds to me as if there may be an axe to grind there. I don't know what his motivation is for talking.
Okay, all right. Well, they planned this thing 10 years ago. It's not finished just yet. Yeah. And it has been reported on, especially in the past couple of weeks.
Right.
And if the intent there is to stop terrorism here, great.
Right. Well,
if
absolutely.
the intent is to stop cyber networks from terror networks, right?
Right.
I think that's purposeful too.
And that raises a great point because, I mean, the number one threat that we face as a nation, frankly, is not Iran. It's not actually the war on terror. It's cyber warfare. It is the daily, astounding number of attacks against our government infrastructure, our private sector. The amount of economic espionage that's directed at our country on a daily basis would stun the American public. So NSA has both a defensive and an offensive requirement. They're out there obviously working on the war on terror by looking for possible terrorist suspects. Now, when you talk about putting together a 1 million square foot data center out in Utah, that
17 football fields,
right.
18 times bigger than the White House. I mentioned 5 times bigger than the U.S. Capitol building.
Right. And people think about that, and there's a tendency, and I always found this interesting, there's a tendency on the average American to think that their life is fascinating enough for the government to want to surveil them all the time, to collect information on them. I can honestly say, having spent a long time in the intel community, that if you're engaged in terrorism or supporting or promoting terrorism or criminal activity as an average American,
they're going to watch you.
They're
going to find you.
Right.
But I mean, is there a danger establishing this in the first place? I mean, the intention might be all well and good, but what happens 10 years from now or 20 years from now?
Well,
are we overly paranoid about folks watching us, or should we be?
Well, no, we're not being overly paranoid. I'll say that. But again, I understand what the concept is from the other side. The other side looks at it and thinks, well, of course they're going to be monitoring all of us. Of course they're going to be collecting all this information and storing it. That's horrible. Well, I come from the other side of this because, again, having spent the time and looked behind the curtain, I understand. They honestly don't care about the average American. That's not the point of this exercise. But there is a tremendous amount of data. Think about the expansion of the Internet. Think about the expansion of communications.
Certainly.
Just even over the past 10 years. You realize what that means in terms of our ability to be able to sift through all of that. The function is still the same. Whether we were talking about 10 years ago or right now, the purpose is still the same, to be able to collect the bits of information related to potential points of concern, terrorists or others, or again, we talk about the cyber warfare.
And I think if that isn't the intent,
right,
in the end, it will be
That's
applauded.
the intent.
I'm out of time, but you come back, okay?
I'll do it.
Mike Baker, thank you.
You.
All right.